Okay, April 6th, and yesterday we spent a good deal of time under the old 7 pulling out the transmission. Interior of the car, cover up the seats. This is the gear shift selector here, and the plunger, which is right there, faces towards the front of the car. In the books it looks like it faces towards the rear of the car. But you have to be careful that you don't lose that when you pull it out, that it doesn't spring apart. Here's the transmission, obviously. And I was, let's see if I can pull in, right, it does pull it into throw-up bearing. I was somewhat surprised at the weight of this transmission. In the books it sort of implied that I was about 60 pounds, but I weighed it today and it's more like 105. So it's going to be fun putting this thing back in. That's a big transmission. There's your clutch and flywheel, and as they say in the book, you got to remember to mark the flywheel assembly. So I'll see if I can pull this in a little. I did mark it with, there they are there, the 2 center punch on the flywheel and also on the crankshaft. That flywheel weighs quite a few pounds also. The disc, let me see if I can pull in on that. As you can see, the top of the rivet holes there's almost nothing left of the friction on both sides. We're almost completely down to the heads of the rivets. So it hasn't scored the well, the pressure plate is not scored, neither was the flywheel, thank goodness. But I'm going to have the flywheel turned anyway, just to make sure. But I think I got it out just in the nick of time. Well, there's the back end of the crankshaft. As you can see, the seal's starting to leak. And also up above over here, at the back end of the head, I also noticed a leak back up in there. So I'm going to get a gasket for that, order up a new seal, and put that in before we go put the clutch and flywheel and trans back in. I also found that it's a lot easier to just drop the exhaust completely. It's basically pretty easy. Drop it in the back and the front, and then you really can't see it, but I've got the slave cylinder hung up by a wire, and I've got the exhaust tied up on the other side by a wire also. Got the scissor jack holding up the engine, and I'll take a last picture of the starter. The starter is also out, and I think I'm going to replace the brushes in that as well while it's out. Well, there's our starter assembly. It's really, I think it's in better shape than it looks right now. I'll probably clean it up, and I'll probably take the back end of it off and replace the clutches. The gear on it seems fine, doesn't look worn or anything. And I'll clean up the terminals also on it. And I'll want to do this while I have it out, because this thing's a bit of a bear to get out. So we'll take care of things now. So that's about it for this time. I'll take some more video after we get things started back together. Okay, today's the 11th of April. I had a very difficult time getting that pilot bearing out. It was frozen in the crankshaft. I finally used a Dremel after destroying the interior of the bearing, and ground it down where it could finally break it free from the crank. Cleaned it up. The new bearing went in well, and the rear seal went in fine, no problem. Obviously turned the flywheel. Figured do everything right this time. What I've done in the past, I never turned the flywheel, and I think that's very important. So I brought it to a good machine shop, and hopefully this will turn out well. Yeah, here we are on the transmission. I was trying to get the throwout bearing off and broke the ear off of the carrier there. So it was early enough I was able to get hold of Victoria, and they're FedExing me one overnight. Obviously at great expense, but at least I'll have the piece. Everything else seems to be fine. Nothing seems to be worn. And I'll go around the side here of the transmission. I'll turn the transmission around in a minute, because I've cleaned the transmission up too. But the splines, the seals, and everything else look pretty good on the transmission. It's amazing what brake clean can do, but it certainly dissolves grease and dirt, and then evaporates. So the transmission I sprayed down pretty well, and it's in pretty decent shape now too. So anyway, that's it, and we're going to start putting up the clutch now. Okay, we're moving right along here. Just a quick picture. Clutch is up. I don't have a pilot shaft, but I spent some time lining up the disc with the pilot bearing and the pressure plate, so the trans should go in, but we'll find out tomorrow after we get the rest of the parts. Now it's on to rebuilding the starter. Okay, we have the starter taken apart here. This brush and this brush are replaced. That goes to the terminal that goes to the solenoid. This brush and this brush are soldered to this terminal here. However, these brushes show almost no wear. These showed a little bit of wear. So I replaced these, and I'm going to leave these alone since they're soldered to this terminal, and they're really soldered nicely there. So getting this thing apart was, these things as usual are very difficult to break loose, but I was able to get, I banged it with a hammer a little bit, and then used the vice grip on the ends and just worked it back and forth, and both of them broke loose. This goes on the end of the shaft here, which goes through the race down in here on that side. They tell you should have a new one and to chop this one off, but I did pry it off against the rules in the book, and now I'm going to try and put everything back together again. I think this comes off pretty easy, and the commutator isn't over here. The brushes face the commutator this way, which I've never seen before. So I'm going to clean this up some, and then we should be all set as far as the starter goes. Well, I'm happy to say the clutch job went together a little harder than expected. The transmission was difficult to put in, but the clutch releases and engages extremely smooth. Everything, no leaks. The end, I got a end head gasket which solved the leak up at the head, and there's no leak at the rear seal. So everything is functioning very well right now, and it was a really good job to get done. Now we're really ready for the driving season. So with that, I think we'll call an end to this. It was a good job to get done, and it'll also complete the video. So that's all for now. Bye.